Good afternoon, Coastie Explorers here, and we are out and about in Guangzhou, China today. We're on Shamian Island. Yes, my son and I have whizzed up here on the bullet train from Hong Kong, and we're going to take a walk around this very historic island. Geography time! Where are we today? Well, Guangzhou is located in southern China in Guangdong province. Forming the entrance to the Pearl River, we have Macau to the west and Hong Kong to the east. As you head upstream, you pass Shenzhen and Dongguan before finally arriving in the metropolis that is Guangzhou. As we zoom in on Guangzhou, you can see Shamian Island, an 800-meter wide piece of land located right in the downtown area. With Cantonese as the original language spoken here, Guangzhou is the largest city in southern China. Following the Second Opium War in the late 1850s, this area of land was ceded to France and Britain. Britain took 3/5 of Shamian and the French had 2/5. Within a few years, the French and the British had built a village here, full of European-style buildings. There were consulates from places like Portugal, France, Britain, Germany, USA. In fact, we've got the Polish one just behind me. It's the only consulate still here on Shamian today. To add defence to Shamian, this canal was dug here by the British and the French. There were 2 bridges put in. This one here behind me is known as the English Bridge, on the English side of the concession, and to the east is the French. Guards were placed on both bridges by the respective countries, and at night at 10 o'clock the bridges were shut and only people with passes could come over, adding extra protection to the Europeans who lived here on Shamian Island. There were 3 main avenues here on Shamian going from west to east. This is the central one here, and all over the avenues are lined with these wonderful, wonderful banyan trees. What do we call them, Jason?
Ubiquitous banyan tree.
Yeah, ubiquitous banyan trees everywhere, yes. Although today, Jason, do you know what? I found out the Latin name. It is Ficus microcarpa. For banyan trees, there we go. You should start using that next time. This is the former home, or where it would have stood, of Sir Robert Hart. He was the Inspector General here for the China Maritime Customs Services, and very well respected. He did that role from 1863 all the way through to 1911. The Chinese Maritime Customs Service was a vital institution established in 1856. Its primary role was to manage and regulate customs operations in Chinese ports, ensuring the collection of tariffs and facilitating international trade. It employed a large number of foreign staff, primarily from European countries, who worked alongside Chinese personnel. In Guangzhou, this spectacular building was the Customs Service headquarters and is located around 100 metres east along the bund from Shamian Island. And just along from there is an equally impressive former post office building. To find out more about the postal service in Hong Kong and China, do check out my 3-part Postbox series where I attempt to travel the length and breadth of Hong Kong in search of all of the pre-World War II British-era postboxes in one epic sunrise to sunset challenge. Now this is the Protestant church here on Shamian. There are two churches here, a Catholic and a Protestant. And this was built in 1865 for British expatriates who lived here on Shamian Island. After World War II, the nationalist government retracted the concession here and handed the church over to the Anglican Church of South China. And then following the Communist Revolution, the local government took custody of the church. It wasn't until 1991 that normal services were resumed here in the church. This is the old Soviet Union consulate here, built in 1918. Reminds me quite a lot of the architecture in Hong Kong, this one with the red brick and the balconies. This here is the old French consulate building. We're here on the French Concession on the east side of Shamian Island, and this is where the consulate would have lived back in the late 1890s, early 20th century. Got to be careful when crossing the road here in China because most of the vehicles are electric, so you can't see them coming. Even the scooters here are all electric as well, so silent but deadly. So YouTubers, be careful when you're in China. Of course, it wouldn't be a former French concession unless you had a carriage from the Orient Express here, where you can have your dinner if you want. There we go. Anyone who currently banks with Standard Chartered, there we go, there's the old Standard Chartered Bank here in Shamian Island. And right next door to the Standard Chartered Bank, we have the Our Lady of Lourdes Catholic Church here. Huge French and Portuguese population here on Shamian Island back in the late 19th century. This one built in 1890, the second church. We've already seen the Protestant church before. Now, it'd be wrong to think that Britain first came here in the 1850s because they'd been here for many, many centuries ahead of that. In fact, they'd taken Hong Kong forcibly in 1841, 1842, but had been here for many centuries before. Let's find out about the old port of Canton, the 13 factories here, and a bit of the history of the British in this area of the world. The Silk Road was an internal land route connecting Asia with Europe and has played a vital role in international trade and cultural exchange in East Asia for over 2,000 years. Romans, Arabs, Persians and more had traded along the route with glassware, perfumes, medicine and metals heading east, and in return silk, porcelain, gemstones, tea and other goods travelling west. Guangzhou gained prominence as an influential hub of the maritime Silk Road during the 9th century during the Tang dynasty. For the first time, traders of all religions and cultures were able to physically come and make that journey all the way by boat to China. Buddhism and Islam spread, and the oldest mosque in China is thought to have been built in Guangzhou at this time. However, it was really the Yuan dynasty in the 13th and 14th centuries when Guangzhou grew to become the ultimate trading post along the South China coast. During the 17th century, The British began trading in Canton primarily through the activities of the British East India Company. However, it was in the early 18th century that the British established their presence in Canton through the 13 factories. These international trading posts formed a cluster of warehouses and offices where European merchants conducted their business under the Canton system. The factories were the principal and sole legal site for trade between China and Europe from 1757 to 1842. During this time, various other materials such as wallpaper, silver, lacquer furniture, enamel, ivory, glass mirrors and fans were exported to European countries and all around the world through these 13 hongs. They were based on land further down the river from Shamian Island and were only used during the cooler months of the year. There were strict rules enforced by the Chinese on the merchants in Canton. Wives of the merchants were banned from the settlement, so many lived down in Portuguese Macau, further down the estuary. And also the learning of the Chinese language was also prohibited. Anyone caught teaching Chinese to the Europeans could even be imprisoned. By the late 1830s, tensions and conflicts emerged, driven by issues such as trade imbalances, disputes over trading regulations, and clashes of cultural norms. These tensions eventually culminated in the outbreak of the First Opium War, which had a profound effect on British-Chinese trade and relations. The signing of the Treaty of Nanjing in 1842 resulted in the opening of additional Chinese ports to foreign trade and marked a significant shift in the dynamics of British trade in China, diminishing the prominence of the 13 factories as other trading centres emerged. Following the Second Opium War in the late 1850s, the sandy shoreline of Shamian Island was forcibly given as a concession to the British and French, and a new European enclave in the centre of Canton began to grow, with the buildings we see today a legacy of European traders who lived in Guangzhou right up until the 1940s. If you want to learn more about what life was like in Canton in the 1800s, check out the Shopping in Canton exhibit at the Hong Kong Museum of Art. And check out the toilets on the third floor for these wonderfully painted stalls of Canton Harbour.
Welcome to the Hong Kong Museum of Art.
We stayed at the excellent White Swan Hotel here on Shamian Island. Let's have a look around. Many great people have stayed here or been here to the White Swan in Guangzhou, including Kim Jong-il, Queen Elizabeth II, and many, many US presidents. And right here on the Central Avenue, we have possibly one of the nicest Starbucks in the world. In a nice old building here, European style building. It's not the best one I've been to. I went to one in Kyoto last year. Beautiful coffee shop right in the old part of Kyoto, but this is going to be a good second best. I think we should go in and take a coffee. Beautiful building, lovely to film in, but do you know what? We're in China, we can't have a Starbucks, so we're going to go and try and find a bubble tea somewhere around these streets. Now, all over Shamian today, we've been seeing these sculptures, beautiful things all over the island. This one here of two European folk speaking to a Chinese lady, and right behind my son who's filming, I can spot something else. It's only a British era post box, or a recreation anyway. We've got a young Chinese boy posting a letter. Now, historically inaccurate because we can see it's got the Queen Elizabeth II cipher down there, and this wasn't a concession for the British under her reign at all. So historically inaccurate, but What a lovely thing to see on the old British concession here in Shamian Island. Let's take a look at a few more sculptures dotted around the island. Located just a 10-minute walk north of Shamian Island is the delightful old neighbourhood of Liwan. The streets are full of regenerated old Tonglao buildings, showcasing what streets would have looked like in the early 20th century, both in Guangzhou and Hong Kong. At night, the tight alleyways and canal area come to life with tourists and locals enjoying the Cantonese cuisine and culture on offer. Also in Liwan is Bruce Lee's ancestral home. Open both day and night, the house is a free museum which gives great insight into what an old Guangzhou house would have looked like, as well as paying homage to the most famous martial artist in history. Be sure to pay a visit to Liwan next time you're in Guangzhou. Now, we can't come to Shamian Island without learning about a massacre that took place here at the hands of the French and the British. We certainly don't learn this enough back in the UK, certainly when I was growing up, about the massacres that took place under British rule. This massacre sort of reminds me of the 1919 massacre in Amritsar, where nearly 400 Indians were shot at the hands of British Indian troops. So let's find out a little bit more about the massacre that took place here in 1925. Following a deadly protest by Chinese factory workers in the international concession in Shanghai, the Hong Kong Canton strike, led by students and workers demanding improved working conditions, higher wages and an end to oppressive labour practices, began to take effect. On June the 23rd, 1925, protesters began walking towards the French side of the concession. As they approached the French bridge, troops fired upon the protesters. Chaos erupted, and by the end of the day, around 50 Chinese were dead and hundreds injured. A memorial stone now lays on the Bund about 100 metres east of the French bridge to pay tribute to the Chinese who died. The Shaji massacre was a significant event that emerged amidst the broader context of the Shanghai incident and the Canton Hong Kong workers' strike. Played a crucial role in shaping the course of Chinese nationalism and labour activism, further fueling the cause for independence and social justice during a transformative period in Chinese history. So as the sun sets here, the Friendship Garden on the Central Avenue here in Shamian, just remains for me to say thanks for joining me today. Hope you've enjoyed having a look around the old European concession here, and we'll catch you on the next one. And don't forget to like and subscribe, Coastie Explores.